Come on, Twitch. We're streaming. I'll go tell the world. Right. Now, if you can't tell, I blew out my voice, so I'm not going to be talking a whole lot today. But I do want to stream. I want to work on the game for quite a while. But I got no voice. I mean, it still works. It just hurts like hell, so I'm not going to use it. So what I'm doing right now is I'm putting in some basic props to make sure I understand the scale of the various things in the game world. The car has been correctly scaled to be a Corolla. It's the right size to be a Toyota Corolla. And this is a make human character. It's the right size for a moderately sized human. I guess it would be an ordinary woman size. It's not. Oh, that's not a. I thought that was clipping through the dirt, but it's just a weird situation on the UV map. So I mean, people can get bigger than this by a little bit. She's not very big, but I'm using her as a proxy character for the pilot, just so that I know the right size of the mech. And if we take a look, this is the mech, and we're going to be replacing it today. It's Alfera stopped in. Yep, I'm in UE4 now because I lost all of my data. I no longer have the other projects. So we're building a mech racing game as our very first UE4 adventure. But I'm afraid that my voice is mostly dead, so I'm going to have a little bit of a rough time with it. So you can see that this is the size of the mech we built, and this is the size of our proxy pilot. If we were to copy the proxy pilot and move it up into roughly the spot where they would be piloting the mech, it's going to be headless mechs. There's going to be the pilot is going to be squatting on the neck like this. Not sure why the camera has decided to do exactly that, but there we are. So this is roughly the size of the character in the mech. So the mech is probably about the right scale. That's not too shabby. Now, if we want to compare that to how large, we're currently doing 4.5. If we want to compare the mech to the pilot in terms of the default scale of Unreal Engine characters, you can see that this Unreal Engine character is almost a whole head taller. So their default character is quite large. But that's fine. Now this game does run, but it currently doesn't run with any kind of game elements. It just exists, and here you can see us running around. Basic stuff, because we're just learning at the moment. But I really don't like the look of this Stormtrooper guy, so we're going to go ahead and try and build a mech today. Last week I spent about half an hour on stream working out what the mechs might look like, and then I promptly deleted that sketch. So we're going to be working mostly from memory, but it was a pretty distinct look. It was quite different from the heavy-limbed look that mechs normally have. Here's our Blender file. I've gone ahead and just started to block out the seat here, just so that we have something the right size. We're going to block out the mech before we try and render it, in detail. We may never render it in detail as a mech, because the mech is probably going to be mostly component parts. It's Alfera says, sucks that I lost all my work. Well, I don't mind it. I have to be reset occasionally. I have to lose a lot of stuff because I got stuck in a rut. Like, for example, Unity. I should have quit Unity 2-3 years ago, but I kept coming up with excuses not to. So losing all the data is sort of as much a blessing as a curse. It is a little bit of a disappointment just because I know that there were some people who were actually looking forward to seeing my diving game, and now they can't. So we're going to go ahead and just mock up the central torso right here, and it's just going to be 2 boxes at the moment. And we'll want to obviously fix that up later. We'll add in some elements off to the side here. If I can get my fingers to... I gotta stop talking. I'm not gonna last 10 minutes if I keep narrating everything. So we're just gonna do some very, very basic blob modeling. So, sorry I'm not going to be talking too much. So I'm just putting in some boxes that are roughly the right size and shape for what I'm trying to do. And the idea here is that we're going to go with a mech that has all of the mechanical parts in contained cells, in contained areas. So basically it's got big biceps and big hips. And then the limb elements for, foot and hands and stuff are going to be long and thin. And I'm hoping that will make it feel like a runner. Now the question is the shoulders and the legs, because they can't be allowed to interfere with each other, or the arms and the legs. So we have to sort of come up with a situation where they never overlap and they can be animated in ways that feel right. It looks a little big. There we go. Very, very basic stuff, right? And let's go ahead and just try and get the shape into roughly the right scale here. And I think we're going to need to have these arms come out. And I think... If I decide I want to, it's pretty trivial for me to go and look at how I made it look. Because I streamed it. So I might go ahead and pull that up from the previous stream. But some of the main problems we've got going here are simply that the tilt isn't right. So we're going to go ahead and set it up a little bit here. There's still something wrong with it. Give me a second. I'm going to pop on over to my video producer and just take a look at the previous video here. Let's mute it. We don't need to hear myself talk. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so there are a couple of differences between what I've created and what I sketched. The thumbnails, when you're looking at Twitch and you're dragging your mouse along the bottom and it gives you thumbnails, those thumbnails are not showing what's actually on the screen. They're like 30 seconds off. It makes it a little hard. Okay, so let's go ahead and refine some of these shapes to be a little bit more in tune with the original so that they don't look quite as shit. So this isn't actually anywhere near as long because you don't need huge long arms. So we're going to go ahead and reduce that. That's closer to the shape we had originally. There's still some work left to be done on that front. And over on the body, I think it's important that we do, in fact, bring this body shape into something a little bit closer to what we had, just because otherwise we're going to have a hard time imagining it properly. So it's more like this. And once again, these hips are not quite right either, because I'm using basic square shapes, which is not exactly right. I could probably sculpt it faster than this. I was going to use box modeling to try and be a little bit faster and easier, but to be honest, sculpting might be fastest and easiest at this point. That's the basic shape. And I think you can already tell that that's a little bit better than what I had before. But there's so many pieces that are not in line yet. The exact shape of everything is way more important than you might think when you're just sketching it up. And you come up with a good sketch and you're like, hey, that's pretty good. And then you're like, I think I can remember those shapes. And you can't because you're not very good at art. Yeah, that's more or less the set of shapes I was using. So we'll just clean it up a little bit and then we'll start to refine it a little bit. But I want to see how big it is in comparison to the mech we had in the game world. What? Oh. Somehow I managed to accidentally grab the armature. Or what, did I grab one of the characters? Is that what I did? I grabbed one of the character elements. Let's go ahead and hide the character elements. I don't want them to be part of this mess. And so we'll go ahead and call this mech size mockup. And we'll send it over. Okay, so if we grab that mech size mockup and drop it in. There we are. So you can see that our mech size is actually larger than we want. It looks like it's almost twice the size that we want. If we were to rotate it around and put it in roughly the right spot so that we can sort of compare them more directly, then when we scale it, oh, the scale snapping is turned on. We really want it to be like, come on, stop. What the heck? I did not tell you to keep scaling down. There's clearly an axis that I'm not aware of here. It's more or less this size that we're looking for, which is 0.58 or 0.6. So let's go ahead and scale it down by 0.6. But here's the thing. We can't scale everything down by 0.6 because this seat is the size it is. There's no getting around that seat size. That's our limiting factor. But the rest we should be able to scale it down. We'll move this down into the seat here. And you can see that that seat takes up basically the whole torso when it's this size. And that might be a constraint we have to deal with. But let's go ahead and join that all in. And export it again. Now, why is this the same size? That's... Well, its center is weird. That's... Did I screw something up? Let me take a look here. Look, the center is in the feet still. No, wait, that's the cursor. That's the problem. All right, no problem. We'll just... Having a hard time getting my fingers to work. There we are. You gonna ask me to re-import? Why is it? Yeah, that's more or less the size I was looking at. So as we develop the mech, the stance of the mech is going to become the most important factor, because a mech that stands bad, that looks bad when it stands, is going to feel bad. It's going to feel awkward. So as we develop this, we're going to want to make sure that we understand the pose of the mech. I want it to feel kind of strange and pseudo-organic, but obviously I don't want it to feel like this. This is a little bit too symmetrical and static, and the shoulders are a little too high. Of course, we don't have a head, so we can't really... there's a limit to what we can accomplish since we don't have a head, in terms of things like how the shoulders should look. A big part of how the shoulders should look comes from the neck. If we take a look at this mech, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 and some odd, 7.5 meters tall. Call it 8. 8 meters is fairly large. That's around 26 feet, 25 feet, which is the size of a 2-story building with a significant roof, you know. So it's not a small thing, but it is small for a mech. I think in most games the mechs are about twice that height. But those mechs aren't racing mechs, are they? Alright, so cleaning this up a little bit, if we want them to feel a little bit more natural. Kind of give it there. Now let's go ahead and start to create some meshes that are a little bit more suitable. And so we're going to go ahead and just grab this seat again. And we'll just punch it out. We'll duplicate it and then punch it out. And we're going to call that the floating cockpit. We'll move this guy back. So the chest that I designed is actually, you can't really see it. It looks like that. And the way it works is that there's going to be some computery bits in there. So we've got to add in some of the framework that we're using. So rather than trying to model it out of a box, I think it would be better to model the framing elements, since we have more or less the size they're supposed to be. But I'm not real sure about that. I'm never real sure about how to model things. It's not a specialty of mine. So the main framing element we're going to want is the shield in front of the cockpit, since that is, by definition, the thing that is the most important for the cockpit pilot. Put that in like this. And then we'll delete the back half. I actually don't know whether that's symmetrical. It's not. Okay. Boom. All right. We're going to be making it symmetrical. I guess now is a good time. We also have things like roll bars over the top, but I'm not going to put those in just yet. What I am going to put in is a rear shield, a thing in the back, which is going to just be the basically the same setup, but for the back part, it looks like this, right? More or less. Could stand to be tighter. In honesty, these are both going to be less curved. So we pull them out like this, and then what we can do is scale them in. I want them to be less curved, and I think that I just need to delete some pieces to do that. There we are. That's more like the shape I have in my diagrams, and there's roll bars here. Over on the side, we've got a torus going, so let's see if we can add one of those. And we're still blocking things out at this point. That torus might be... It's actually not too bad, actually. I thought it was going to be too thin, but it's actually roughly the right size and shape. And this isn't exactly a roll bar. What this is a combination shoulder mount roll bar. Did I mute? Hold on. This is a new... Yeah, okay. I was like, this is a new computer. I don't know whether or not I actually muted my main stream. It could have been possible that everybody had been listening to me listening to myself for quite a while. Now, we don't actually have the whole roll bar or the whole shoulder mount, as you might expect. So we'll just delete some of that. And below, we've got a wrapper that comes around and creates a rather nice, like, frontal area where there's just going to be a little divot here. So let's put in the little divot. It's like that. And now let's put in another circle. That's a cube. Another circle. And that circle is going to be the element that comes in and creates that hoop, that loop we got. Something like that. And obviously most of that circle needs to be deleted. Well, that didn't end up anywhere near where I thought it was going to be. I'm not so good at this. I just don't really understand how to do hard surface modeling very well. It's never been my forte, which is strange, because I love spaceships, but I've never really learned how to model spaceships. So I think most people use a hard surface plugin but I've never managed to get any of them to feel right. I don't know. I think I probably just don't have the right ideas in terms of how things should flow. Anyway, this hoop here flows into the crotch. Now this is the front shield of the crotch. It's not the place where the legs mount. It is the front element that protects the leg mount. It's more or less that size. And if we take a look at that compared to our blockout size, you can see it is pretty close. We may change a few details, but that is close enough for government work. Now the back I didn't sketch. I don't know what it's going to look like. We'll leave that for now. Let's go ahead and see if we can get some of this arm stuff going. See if we can mock up the limbs a little bit better. So the shield that is protecting the insides of the mech looks like a drumstick with the with someone taking a bite out of one of the sides. I guess the easiest way to model that is going to be to start from a cube. I don't know why, but I wasn't in edit mode. So here's a cube. Now the difficulty here is, of course, that we are going to be... I guess I should punch this out into its own thing, because the difficulty here is that we're going to be needing to rotate this to make it look... Even at resting pose, it's not going to be vertical. Same with this torso. This torso is currently vertical. It's almost never going to be vertical like that. But to make this into a drumstick, we can just bevel it. And then we can either stretch or extrude this bottom face. So there we go. Exciting stuff, right? And there's a bite taken out of it where it connects to the arm. Connects to the shoulder, you know. So to get this to be... I mean, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have extruded it in. We'll have to think about that. So this is a little bit too big. I'll just try and bring it into the right scale here, because this thing is not... It's not a mech that has big, thick arms. It doesn't need big, thick arms. The only thing the hands are used for is to... They do things like catch or fall, or try and pull other mechs off, or pick up a flag. So, aside from that, this here is actually a slot. It's a little bit more complicated than what we've actually developed here. We're going to go ahead and use an inset for that. And then if we extrude that up, I think we can probably just use some loop sliding to get that to feel a little bit better. It's also a little bit fat. There we are. And coming out from that is the main arm, which is just a pole with a little loop on it. And I think that we can again use a cube. I didn't realize, sorry. Come on. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to delete the top and the bottom here. And that's going to make beveling a little bit more natural and organic when we get around to it. So we'll just shrink that down. And of course the thing here is that we're almost never going to see a straight arm like this, but the straight arm would actually be back here, and then this is going to end up having a hook. That's more or less the arm. We actually have a little bit of shape to it. It's not quite that straight. So let's put in a couple of cuts, and then we'll do a little bit of beefing and a little bit of shrinking. And then at the end we've got that hand. I've just kind of arbitrarily created a 4-fingered hand. We'll go ahead and close the tip. And then for the 4-fingered hand, we might as well create the fingers first. Now this is a straight down arm, which is not going to be in the long run, but we'll work on it. Now the hand is supposed to feel very basic, and that's kind of what I'm going for here. And of course there's going to be a hand shield, so we'll just grab here and turn that into a hand shield. And now, unless I miss my guess, approximately half of these faces are backwards. Currently we're not using a material that has a... Oh, I haven't looked at stream. Haven't looked at the stream in quite a while, but since I'm not doing anything interesting, nobody else has either. What was that? What did I just do? Ugh. Blender just did one of those shortcut things. I was trying to hit Shift G or whatever, and I have no idea what I did hit. But I'm sure it wasn't good. The hand shields need work, but the point is there. It looks like I turned on something strange with the lighting. Let's go ahead and just turn this light into a sun. You put it into rendered view, hold Z to flip out. Yeah, I guess that's what I must have done. At least it wasn't one of those terminal problems where the thing no longer works anymore. So here we've got mech arm. I'm naming... There's something about this where it allows you to name the meshes and the mesh objects independently, and it's dumb. So we're gonna be careful not to just name it something where we can never find it again. Path Tracer stopped in to say what had happened there. Now for the legs. And once again, I'm going to stop paying attention to chat for a little while I work the legs out. Fundamentally, one of the problems we've got here is that this arm is straight down, and that's not how it is. The arm needs to be slanted, or rather pushed, because we need space for the hips. So I think the best way to do that is to simply move this rig out and then change some of the slopes and stuff. So we'll go ahead and give that a shot here. The problem is that this little, I don't know, it's shaped differently because it is curved here, but the curve is not something that I can do so easily because I don't have the right separation, but I guess that's okay. We can do the curve crappily and then try and clean it up. What are you? Oh geez, I really botched that. Let's try that again. Without the part where we suck. That's closer. I mean, it's still pretty bad. Well, we have lots of time to figure out exactly how we want things to look and feel. We're definitely going to have to redo that pauldron. It's just not doing it for me. Alright, well let's go ahead and try for the legs now. So the major part of the leg is, of course, a big hip. So we'll just set that up. Something like that is the basic size. But of course it has a little bit of a shape to it. It's not quite shaped like this. We could just bevel, but you can see how that produces some really awkward topology. So our best bet is, once again, to delete the top and the bottom and bevel here. Gonna put in some cuts. And we're gonna want to scale that up. And in addition, this part of the leg actually is not that far back. Just like with the drumstick at the shoulder, we do come forward here. But we don't have this exact shape. We'll work it out. We'll try and figure out exactly what we need. Anyway, we should be able to grab this, extrude it straight up, shrink it down, and top it off. And down here we have the same setup, so extrude it down, shrink it down, top it off like that. And just as with this, there is a series of elements here. We're gonna have to delete that face. It's not how things work. I was simplifying it, and I shouldn't have. The actual setup down here is a little bit different. What? That's a little bit closer. And just like with the shoulder up there, we have a conduit carved out of the back here. In this case, I think it makes more sense for us to do it like this, so that we have a nice even size. And we're probably going to have to re-sculpt this later, but that's okay. So once we have that, we can carve it straight in here, and then just use some massage techniques to get it to be a little bit less sharp. We'll work it out. What I'll probably do is replace this with like a bracket or something. But let's go ahead and create the arm element, or the shin element, which is just a long, same as the arms, it's just a long, thin bar. Oh, you know what? I should probably create a material. Because I'm worried that we'll end up having a lot of inside out. Yeah, see, we've got some inside out faces. I don't want those. We don't currently have flip face, so we're going to need to... Is it reverse UVs? Is this what I need? No. God damn it. This is why I add it to my quick favorites, because it's in the worst possible spot. Somewhere in here, there it is. It's under mesh. Jeez. There we go. And then over here, I think that this one's probably got some backwards ones as well. Yeah, there they are. So we'll just flip those two. No, that's not what I wanted. There we are. Alright, back to this guy. And once again, the neutral pose here isn't neutral at all. This isn't something we would normally see, but we'll set it up. And we want is a curve here, so we'll just put that in. There we go. And then it ends in basically a hoof. We're just kind of blocking things out at this stage. We're going to have to do a lot of these things again. I mean, we could go for a strange aesthetic. Oh, my microphone kept syncing and I kept following it. So I was sitting on my back. There we are. So let's name this. There we are. Now we're going to create duplicates of these and then merge them together. And that's going to be the mesh proxy. So once we've got that mech proxy, we can start to move some of these elements into positions that feel a little bit more natural and make sure that we're making sense. One of the things that is unnatural at this stage, these legs are too short. And the reason they're too short is because the default standing position for this mech does not have straight legs. So the fact that the legs are straight down means that this is the tallest the mech could ever be, and it's probably more in tune with something like this. So we'll just set this up to be more natural. I guess we could add bones at this stage if we really felt like it, but I don't particularly really feel like it, so we're not going to. Yeah, it looks like I overestimated that a little bit. That's fine. I'll come back to that. Another thing we've got here is that the legs are pointed just exactly straight forward, which I don't believe makes much sense. In the sketch, they're actually pointed inwards like this. I'm not sure if we'll keep that, but we'll leave it for now. Now for the arms. The arms are the same way, but in the opposite direction. So we'll just... missed a finger. So I think we're going to have to shorten the arms or curve them more, because that's too long. That's fine for now. We'll deal with it more later. That is pretty much the idea. Let's duplicate this chair and then drop the chair in. And there's our mech proxy. Let's just put that in the game world and see. Yeah, the mech proxy's all screwed up. I didn't bother to actually make it have like a UV map or anything. So you can see how we're starting to refine the shape a little bit, starting to make it feel a little bit more natural. We definitely have these legs. See, the thing is that's technically correct, or very close to correct, but it's not how people stand, so it looks wrong. We'll go ahead and set that up. We're going to have to fuss with the stance some more, I can already tell. It's basically the polar opposite of the strongman stance that the Stormtrooper has over here. And in our initial proxy, we had the legs spread. And in this proxy, we've got them pigeon-toed. Let's go ahead and spread them and see whether or not that's a better stance. Yeah, no, that probably is a better stance. Well, we'll go ahead and use that. I like the way that we can probably get the hands to echo it. Let's go ahead and try it. So the idea here is that if we create stances that have contiguous flow lines, I think we're going to have a better time. They're going to be nicer looking. And in this case, what that means is if we can have the arms follow the sweep of the hips, we're probably going to feel a little bit more natural. So that's what we're going to try and do. A little bit more natural for a mech. It's probably not what you would want for an organic creature because it feels a little bit too synced up. But for a mech, it makes sense to sort of follow the same slopes. I'm not sure. We'll have to think about it. Having the arms out a little further gives it a more aggressive stance, which might be better. Shall we see how it looks when we're actually in here? Look at these. Hey guys, how you doing? Working hard or hardly working? Now, I think this is probably good enough for us to start thinking about animating our own character system. Because, I mean, this is obviously not what we want. There are a couple of things about this that I'm not too sure of, though. I don't know anything about how Unreal does this. I would like this mech to be customizable. In Unity, that would be extraordinarily challenging, because in Unity, you would have to do a skeleton merge. It would be just a total nightmare. I'm not sure how that goes here in Unreal. Maybe we'll go ahead and just assume that they're not going to be customizable for this first game. And we'll just have a couple of static mechs. That might be the best. By static, I mean with pre-configured setup, not with not unmoving. So if we're going to do that, then this scale is probably about right, so we might as well put together a skeleton. So if we are going to add in an armature, I actually have never done this for Unreal. I don't know whether Unreal is the sort of game that likes to have a core bone at 0 or not. I guess it doesn't matter. We can do it both ways. It's a very low effort, easy to set up sort of setup, so who cares? We're going to go ahead and call this mech armature. And we're going to want to put it in front. So I usually have a core bone like this. It's just a long habit from too many years of Unity not understanding basic things. You'll have to make different mech pieces weighted to the skeleton, import them as different skeletal meshes, and then sync them with a set master pose component. That doesn't sound too hard. I mean, it's 3 steps, but it sounds like it's 3 pretty basic steps. So I'll do that then. But first I'm going to need to make sure that our skeleton exists. There is a question as to whether or not we want to allow the torso to flex. And I think that we'll go ahead and allow it. Why not? We do not have a head, so we're not going to worry about that. But we are going to have some arms, so... Now there's always going to be a question as to exactly where these bones should go and if they should even exist. In this case, we're going to go ahead and push... we're going to go ahead and push Unreal a little bit, because I'm not sure whether or not Unreal actually has any concept of this or not. But let's start to name these bones. This is going to be shoulder L, shoulder R, and basically, these are going to be the bones that the arms rotate around for the rotator cuff, but we're also going to need to have bicep arms, as with usual setups, so we'll go ahead and put that in. And I actually think people normally just call this arm, don't they? That's fine, we'll call it arm. Now here is one of the parts that's not going to work very well, but we're going to try it. We're going to see how it works. See if we can get it to feel natural, because in truth the arm is rotating around that point, by which I mean it's not actually, there is no part of the arm mesh that should be on that location. I'm hoping to kind of simulate the feel of it. And we'll see if it works. No guarantees. So this is going to be forearm L. I wonder, I didn't check, I probably should have. Often these game engines have preferred naming conventions, and there's no reason for me to come up with my own names if there's already a naming convention. So what? Come on, what? Did I screw something up here? Oh. It's not going to be really a very humanoid rig. There's a lot of, I mean, it's going to be humanoid, but only on accident. There's a lot of pieces here that aren't humanoid or don't move like humans move. I don't know. Unity has this concept of human skeletons. And if you try and do something that's not a human skeleton, you have to do a whole bunch of custom shit. And it is a real mess because their concept of a human skeleton is not very good. So I'm not sure whether or not Unreal has the same sort of situation. Alfaria says that there is a naming convention, although it's pretty chill, so we'll have to look into that. There's not a whole lot of bones here, so it would be not that much work to rename them, so we'll work on that later. So once again, we are working on the idea that the leg is not going to rotate on the bone, but around the bone. We'll see whether or not that ends up working for us. So when we're binding to this, it might be better if we don't use automatic weights. There are a number of things involved here that are going to end up... Yeah, Path Tracer says that I have to assign the weight groups manually. I'm not sure exactly what part he's talking about, but if he's talking about right now, this very instant, that is exactly what I was thinking. So we can just go ahead and set it up with, I think empty weights are... let's go ahead and use envelope weights and just see whether or not that gets us close. So if we then select the skeleton and use pose mode, so you can see how envelope weights didn't work great, but that's okay. We'll just go ahead and start to paint it. Now painting in 2.8 is a true pain in the ass. So what we need to do in order to allow it to paint is to click on the skeleton first and then the mesh, I think, and then go into paint mode. I think that's how it works. And you can see that it's actually very challenging to see what the heck's going on. It selects a random bone, and you can't deselect them, so you have to keep selecting them over. It's just a mess. It's not great. Either way, we're going to want to turn on that x-axis mirror and turn on normalize. That's Unreal. That's not the tool. Path Tracer says, go to the edit menu and uncheck lock object modes. If that is actually what I needed to do, you just saved me a tremendous amount of time. Because it's super annoying to select a bone and have it say, oh, so you want to paint both those bones now? So I'm looking forward to this. I'll let you know how I feel about it in a minute here. Anyway, we're just going to block out some of this. And what I want to do is make sure, yeah, good, it is mirroring properly. But you can see how it's still selecting both of these bones. I was hoping this was going to not do that. Whatever. Now there are ways to do this that don't involve waving a paintbrush around. I can create a vertex group based on this bone and then assign verts to it. And we're probably going to end up doing that for a lot of these elements. But I wanted to make sure that the painting was working. Oh, come on. So the problem with assigning them via vertex groups is that they don't mirror. So you have to manually assign them on both sides. It's a big pain in the ass. So I don't know yet. We'll think about it. But as you can see, it is refusing to paint that finger. There we go. So now the hands are all red. And in order to make things easier on ourselves, we can actually just punch those hands out or mask them off. I don't know how to mask them off. There is like a mask brush, but I don't know how to get it to work right. So generally speaking, I just punch it out to its own object because that way I won't accidentally work on it. So if we select this bad boy, we want this bone bound there and all the way up. The bone is on top, which means that I can't see shit, but if I put the bone in the bottom, in order to put the bone in the bottom, I have to stop weight painting, go back out to object mode, select the bones, deselect in front, select the bones, select the mesh, go back into weight painting mode. God, Blender really needs to do some work on their on just their process, you know? They need to dog food some stuff. It's anyway, we're just going to go ahead and paint that. And you can see that what we've got is a situation where we're painting the pauldron, and we don't really want to. So we're going to end up having to unpaint the pauldron later, but that should work. So now what we're going to do is the same thing. We're going to just select all of this and then punch it out into its own mesh. Here's the issue. I forgot. This is actually not going to work, is it? Because this is a mirrored mesh. Is it going to work? How smart is Blender? Blender's not that smart, is it? We're going to find out. We will soon know whether Blender is that smart or not. Either way, let's see if we can figure out how to select the arm bone. So first we have to deselect, then we have to select. There we are. That's not right. What bone contains all of this pauldron if it's not the arm bone? Whatever. Anyway, because there's no flexing involved, it's not an organic material that flexes. We don't have to worry about any of these objects actually being bound to more than one bone. So what I was planning to do was just to weight them all by parenting them rather than by doing bone weighting. And they could just all be static meshes. But I wanted to try this first because this is this has some things about it that I like. That seems fine. So, punched out. And now the torso. So deselect all the bones and then select all the bones. And you can see this torso did not get the bones properly set up, which is fine. We will paint them manually. Why are you being a jerk? Let me paint this. It's got one of the... Oh, okay, so... This is, this mesh is mirrored on the other side. Brilliant! That's fine. That's more or less correct. I mean, we'll go ahead and fill this part in here. Why is that not... Oh, it's not... It doesn't have an edge loop in the middle there. That is low poly. That's fine. There's a piece or two left over. There we are. How about that guy? Come on, seriously? It's... There's got to be an easier way to do this. I don't know it. All right. So I believe that what we're seeing here with this flashing... No, I guess not. Do I have two meshes? I bet I have two meshes, and that's what's going on. I've just got... This seat mesh happens to be in the same spot. Alfera says that the vertex groups would have been easier. Yeah, the problem with the vertex groups is there's no automatic mirroring. But, you know, a little late for that. Does this have... Oh, this doesn't even have the right... I didn't actually set this up properly. There we are. That's better. I wish that masking... Maybe it is easier. I wish I understood the masking in Blender. I've never managed to get it to work. In Blender 2.7... it would only work when you're in certain view modes, which was very strange. So I sort of gave up after that, but maybe they started to work it better. In ZBrush, it's just a fundamental part of how you move. Alfera says that masking in Blender is terrible. In ZBrush, it's just part of how you do your processing. It's very straightforward. And using it in Blender is like, why aren't you straightforward? Why are you so annoying? That's not the right bone. Try that again. There's a bone hiding in here. There it is. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Chugga 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 chugga. Yeah, just assigning vertex groups would have been faster. Too late. Sounds like my mailman has come. I can hear him because our mailboxes have been broken for 3 years, and he still has not figured that out. So he is smashing things. Okay, so this is actually not the right shape for this leg, now that I'm looking at it more closely. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of surgery here, and we're also going to want to punch it away. Pow! Oh, well, more or less correct. Now we got the foot. We'll just paint that up. We can't paint this because the bone is in the way. That's always a good sign that Blender's thought something through real carefully. So I guess we'll have some weird stuff happening with this, but that's fine for now. We'll try and work it out later. Yep, we cannot paint there because the bone is in the way. And obviously, if you are painting to try and do a weight painting of a bone, the number one consideration should be that the bone gets in the way. Nope, not scale. Paint. There we go. That is more or less correct. And in theory, we're now done. Let's recombine everybody. So if we were to select all these pieces that we blasted away and recombine them. And did I miss any? Maybe, maybe not. I missed... Well, there is a forearm and a chair. The chair is not part of this, and the forearm is. There we go. Everybody's back together now. The band is all back together. Let's go ahead and deal with this armature. See whether we can get some... We're going to have to put it in the front, aren't we? Give me a second. So this is our mech. Let's give it in a nice little action pose and see whether or not it sort of works or not. Oh, that's not too shabby. It's not in the right spot, though. So we're going to have to actually go in and edit where the position of these bones is. So... That's a little bit better. We'll work it out. Alpharia says that the root bone probably won't have the right name and we'll get some complaints. That's fine. Right now we're just kind of working through some basics. We're very, very early stage. Just blocking things out, learning Unreal as we go. You know, that's how it is. So we'll go ahead and put in some nice jogging. And of course the torso itself is tilted, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Just there we go. Action shot. Dun, dun, dun. We shall see. I've seen some game engines where they screw up on the import if the skeleton is not in a T-pose. We'll see if Unreal is one of those. Either way, I'm not sure how to export this. I've never tried to export a non-static mesh. See how it says static mesh here? I don't want it to be a static mesh. I want it to be... I want it to be a boned mesh. What do they call it? In Unity, it's called a skinned mesh. Alpharia is planning to give me some export settings. Well, I'd rather figure out how to get the tool I'm using to do what I needed it to do. I can't imagine it can't. Skeletal mesh, says Alpharia. So how do I get this to understand that this is a skeletal mesh? Okay, so if I hold on, if I export the armature, it's a skeletal mesh. Alpharia just uses the native FBX export. Yeah, I could do that, but it takes 10 times longer. Okay, so according to this, the skeleton is a skeletal mesh. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens when I export this armature, but let's name the armature something. Oh, it is. Okay, that's fine. And then let's hit it. Where's our export? Boom. All right. So when we go over to Unreal, let's see what we get here. It's called Mech Armature, and it's in the skeletal mesh setup. And it's got none for skeleton. Okay, maybe that'll be okay. We'll find out. So here's our skeletal meshes. We've got mech armature and mech underscore armature. Brilliant naming conventions we've got going here. And it looks like we've got some stuff. So let's take a look. Alfera says, keep it on none. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I did exactly that. We are on the same page. So this is the skeleton. It's a mech armature skeletal mesh actor. It doesn't look like I imported the pose. Here is a physics asset. I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Let's delete some of these guys. No, not that guy. That guy. So this is the purple dude. This is the orange dude. And I think that they are different. Yeah, one is an armature and one is a physics asset. And then the skeleton. Now, I don't know yet how these fit together. Physics asset is for ragdolls. Okay, well, does that mean if I hit play? Yep. Boy, it disintegrated. It actually kept the import setting where I said that those bones were not attached, and they are not attached. They just fell off. That's great. I love it. So that was fun. These bad boys here, presumably one of them is the thing I need in order to start creating another animatable character. I don't know whether or not we'll be using animations from Blender or whether they're whipped up in Unreal. I don't think they're whipped up in Unreal. I don't think Unreal likes that very much. So I might have to create the animations in Blender, which would be fine. The purple one is what I want, says Alfera. But they're all important. Yeah, I wasn't planning on deleting any of them. So we'll go ahead and just take it out of the scene for now, because I don't need it at the moment. And if we just take a look here, we got some physics, some closing. This looks very, very similar to the Star Wars Trooper that we've got over here. So my guess is that we're on the right track. Yeah, here's a skeletal mesh. No kinematic bones. So one of the things I want to try and do is have some IK, and I'm presuming that's not going to be terribly challenging. We'll find out. Yeah, so Alfera is telling me I'll probably do my core animations in Blender, which seems fine. Right now I'm just trying to get used to what we're looking at here. If we open this up, we can't open it up. So I don't really know what's going on here, but we do have a skeleton tree. Let's just make sure that the skeleton tree exists in the right way. We're not doing animations right now, but we should be able to do a pose, right? I'm making metal noises to myself because everybody does that while they animate, right? If not, you're missing out. There we are. So there's a pose. So the question here is whether or not that pose will survive into the game world. No, it didn't. That's interesting. So I can pose things, but it doesn't survive into the game world? That's interesting. It must be something related to the animation. I bet I need to create a pose asset. Okay. Create a pose asset. Current pose. That's fine. What? Didn't it? Okay. Base pose, reference pose, and doesn't let me change that. Preview pose. No. That's an animation. I don't think it's... We're not really talking about animations. We're talking about poses. So, for some reason, it's... Ah, there we go. Let's see if that worked. Alfara says that it has a weight value. Yep, that's exactly what I've found out. The only question is how to get it to show up in the game world. Now we're into the sort of situation where I really don't understand what we're trying to do. I'm not even sure that that pose mode's saved. I'm going to have to look up a tutorial on this. There's just a little too much going on here for me to sort it out live on TV. This shouldn't be something so complicated that it requires people to help me out with it. It's very, very basic stuff. So I might do that off camera. Alfara says to not bother with pose assets right now. Yeah, I'm going to have to look up exactly how to get things animated. I'm not too worried about it being beyond me. It's just something where I'm going to have to work through it. Unity is just as convoluted. My favorite part about Unity is even if you get the animation system working, half the time you'll have clicked on something and Unity will think you're talking about the animation system blueprint or prefab when you're actually talking about a specific one in the scene, and you'll be like, why isn't anything changing? And it's because Unity doesn't like you. Speaking of which, I haven't sorted out how to create landscape brushes for textures yet either, like sand and mud and all that stuff. So there are some things on my plate, and since my voice is all but gone, I think it would be good for me to stop streaming and go do those. But this is the sort of basic stance we're going for in terms of how the mech has pieces and stands, and we'll go ahead and create final parts for that over the course of the game. It's going to be something we refine constantly. Thanks for your help, everybody, and I'm signing off before I completely lose the ability to say I'm signing off. Have a good one.